And we're live. Welcome back to the weekly roundup, special Canadian edition. I'm up in the Great White North, hence I can't shave. It's like a rule. There's two
Ah,
reasons you don't. There's two reasons you don't shave: playoffs and hockey, and when you live in Mexico and you get too cold when you come home.
exactly.
Uh, anyways, I'm whining. All right, holy cow! Can I just say the world's crazy? Like, not that this is it. I feel like we come on the roundup too many times to say that the world's crazy,
Right.
but we're having like assassination attempts going on in the world and
Same as it ever was.
same as it ever was. Wars all over the place. I just
Right.
got off an on-site, which was awesome
Mm,
and very eye-opening to just
mm.
see how tumultuous like internal politics can be sometimes. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Microsoft got hacked. I just heard this morning. I was looking at the news article right now.
Wow. I'm
There's
late
stuff
to the
going
party.
on. There's stuff going on.
There's
But
always
more
stuff
importantly,
going on.
there's stuff going on in the yoga world. People don't
Yeah,
talk about the yoga world enough.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We originally started the roundup with the idea we would search, like do some research ahead of time and be like, what's the like yoga news? The problem is that we have Google alerts and everything for it. There is no yoga news. Like, we're the yoga news,
Right.
which I think is actually a really good thing. I'm not
Mhm.
sure that that's necessarily negative. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Coach Nina, what's been coming up with
Well,
your clients? Where's the focus
yeah.
been?
Yeah. I just, on that note of like the world's a shit show, this is ringing in my mind because I just heard this quote last night from, I can't think of his name, but a master, he's passed away, but yoga philosopher. And it was like, come closer. Here's the secret. Here's my secret. I don't mind. I just don't mind. It's going well.
Nice.
I don't mind. It's going terrible. I don't mind. Just like middle path,
Yep.
right in the
Yeah.
middle. So, and
What's
isn't
the
that,
What's the quote? If there's the I can't remember. I'm gonna butcher it completely. Where this originates? It's been on the internet. I feel
mhm,
like it's an original Taoist thing or something. But it's like the farmer and he has a son, and the son is his pride, and then the son goes out and finds some horses, like wild horses, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, we got these horses! Now we're gonna make all this money." He goes, "I don't know, like it's to be seen." And then the horse kicks him and breaks his arm, and everyone goes, "Oh, what's bad luck?" And he goes, "I don't
right,
know, it's to be seen." And then the army comes and is conscripting everyone. He says, "Ah, but my son's got a broken leg, like he can't go." They go, "How lucky he didn't go." Didn't have to go with the army. He's like, I don't know, it's to be seen. Like it's just
right.
that more measured,
That's it.
I don't mind
That's
mentality. Yeah,
and
being the point.
nothing like that when you're in the thick of being a fucking yoga studio owner. Like
Yeah,
that's the practice. I mean, it's high level, it's next level Buddha shit.
yeah,
The shit comes up and it goes sideways and it goes wrong and somebody opens across the street and you gotta, increase, you gotta fire people and you gotta hire people and there's always stuff.
you got to deal with the schlag of whatever. You know what? Let me jump in on that. Let's spin onto that for a minute
Yeah,
before we jump
yeah,
into some of the other stuff
yeah.
because this has been coming up for me a lot too, working with people and just having some conversations. And I think the two things that are fascinating to me, and these have been true for over 10 years coaching in the yoga world and even before, or just seeing other colleagues and everything else, right? Most studio owners fall into this category at some point where they're waiting for something else to happen to like fire them into action. So
Mhm.
like even if they know I could do this thing or I should do this thing, they
Right.
procrastinate or they can't get the action going on it. And it makes me think of a quote from the yoga world. The biggest problem in life is no problem.
Word.
The hardest studio owners are the ones that like
Yeah.
they're
Right.
making enough money to cover the expenses. No
Mhm.
one's really that upset about things, but like nothing's really going that good either. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
they're always
Yeah.
waiting for something to fire you to action. But
Right.
I say that to say juxtaposed with what we were talking about with this measured yogic, like,
Hmm.
yeah, things are up and down, but like I'm just riding the wave and gonna keep myself level, but keep moving forward.
Sure. Sure.
They're
And to
not the same thing. Yeah.
not, they're distinct. And to stay engaged and to stay creative, engaged in your creative process and to continue
Mm.
um while also staying measured and not from a
Yeah.
place of like, oh shit, I have to do all this stuff to. but
Yeah.
because it is constantly moving and changing. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a human phenomenon, to like need to, what level of crisis do I need to be in until I get into
Sure.
gear, you know, um,
Sure. You
or
quit smoking once you have cancer, like
right.
exactly.
How bad does
Yeah.
it have to get?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, right.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe to that point, what I would add is it's not that I think that's a strategy. It's like to find
Mhm.
another way to motivate yourself before
Right.
you have to hit something like that. But it shows that there's value in the
Mhm.
difficulty that your business brings to you because it's going to force you to reevaluate a situation and call you to action in a new
Right.
way.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
don't get
Yeah.
up. You don't have to get so upset about it. You
That's
don't have to
right.
like it, but
That's
like
right.
that's
Yeah.
the measured part.
Yes. Yes. And related but distinct is, alternatively, how about, you know, just staying so engaged with your business that you're looking for opportunities to expand and deepen and broaden,
Yeah,
because it's fun to be creative.
totally.
It just for the purpose of being creative, like to create because it's
I
fun.
think I think not enough people make that comment anymore. Like, did
Like
anyone
nothing's
ever
wrong.
open a studio?
Nothing's
Yeah,
shitty.
did anyone ever open a studio and be like, this is going to be shitty? Like that's not
Right.
right. Like it's a
Right.
lifestyle business.
Terrible thing. Yeah.
That's why we say ethically affluent lifestyle. Like it's about
Right.
the lifestyle. It's about the
Mhm.
money too, because
Sure.
that's a component of the lifestyle. But
Sure. Sure.
like,
Sure.
well, let me add to it with
Mm,
this too, because I think there's another detail that um, a mentor of mine years ago, I remember first hearing this, and I don't know where it originates, but then just yesterday I was on a group sort of like mastermind call with this small group that I work with, and this came up again. And I
mhm,
was like, oh, I haven't heard that for a while. So good. And it's the idea that you own the business.
mhm,
So that means you're the rule maker. Like if the business is a game, you're
mhm.
literally constructing the rules of the game. So just make the rules so that you can't lose. is- was the
Yeah.
thought. Like, don't make any rules that would allow you to lose. And it's a challenging but interesting thought. And I think that it ties into this idea of like needing to be called to action and then approaching thing measured. If you
Mhm,
know that like remind yourself, ultimately you do have control about what's happening
mhm.
and you're not waiting for something to go bad for you to finally do the things you need to do and find that sort of motivation
Right.
saying measured in your approach, like it's going to be up and down, but like you're making the rules.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a fun game.
I think that one you could spin into a lot of things. So let's keep going on to some of the stuff that you had happening because this make the rules thing I think is actually
Right.
a partial solution for some of the
That's
things you've been
right.
coaching on.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right. Well, we talked about last weekend. I was sharing about a client who's, I think she's under a year, and she's a psychotherapist, so she has a therapy practice that's a part of her yoga studio. And she also, so she has therapy, massage, and classes, yoga classes, and currently only 6 classes a week.
yep.
And they're pretty, low attended, one or two. And so right, we talked about that last week, like how many is too few to create a habitual yoga practice. Yeah.
Uh, one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good question. I would, what if we reframed in this way?
Mhm.
Like the number of classes, this to me is related to other things. Like the way
Mhm.
this the nature of the question itself that I find
Yes.
interesting.
Uh-huh.
And not the way you're proposing it, but like this is a common question we get asked. Like, how many classes should I have? What's too little? What's too many?
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
It's a little bit like when people try to start debating how long should a marketing video be? And it's
Mm,
like, if you've only produced a couple marketing videos, why are you even talking about the length? Like, first off, just make 100 videos and then worry about stuff
content.
like that. Right.
Right. Hmm.
But the question isn't like people will make statements just across the board, like, oh, it has to be short, like under 3 minutes, under 2 minutes, under 1 minute, because people's attention spans are low. I'm like, well, is that true? Because like people go watch a 3 hour movie in the theater. So I'm not sure that people's attention spans are low. Their patience for wasted time has lowered, would be the way I would say it. So the question isn't how long should your video be? The question is
What are you
how
saying?
long, yeah, what are you saying? How long can you keep someone actually engaged in what the fuck you're saying? Because if you have a 5 minute video and you could have said the
That,
whole point in one, that's the part that's the
right,
problem, not the
right,
length. The length's
right,
irrelevant.
right.
Like
Right.
there's some factors of length. I
Sure.
digress. That's to me a parallel to what we're talking about.
Mhm.
How many classes is too little?
Mhm.
Maybe we reframe to say, what are we selling? Like the
Mhm.
first question I would go to is if you have a psychotherapy practice and a massage therapy practice and yoga, you if you and your classes are low attended, it's like becomes a little bit of the chicken or the egg situation where
Right.
that's not enough classes for me to come to you just for yoga, maybe, or it
Mhm.
makes that more difficult. On the other hand, if you have low attended classes, it'll seem silly to add a bunch of classes. So I don't know if the question is how many classes. The question is that your product?
That's the question. What is your product?
Yeah, what's your actual product?
Yeah. Is it therapy, actually?
And it's not to say yoga is not components of it, but like this is a packaging question, you know.
Right. Right. That's great. Thanks for that. That's a product question. And while I have you, Josh, while I have you, this is similar but different. Another client, she's been open 12 years, and her problem is that her clients can't book into classes. They're over capacity.
Yeah,
However, she can't add more classes to her schedule because she doesn't have the the, the bodies. She doesn't have the teachers. She doesn't have the staff.
right,
She
right.
can't do more.
Yeah.
So
So what do
so
you do?
what do you do? You know, so we're looking at
uh
that.
okay. Here's the
Prices and
here's yeah, here's the
scare
blunt,
people
quick
away.
answer,
I mean, it
right?
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Don't invite
The
new
blunt,
people in. It doesn't make sense. It's like makes my head explode.
yeah. The
I
blunt,
love it.
quick
I
answer
love
is
this.
raise prices.
Right.
Right? Like the
Like now there's a demand.
economics, yeah,
Yeah.
economics of business 101, supply and
Right.
demand. It's
Right.
so if you have
Mhm.
a limited supply and a higher demand, your prices go up. That's just the
Yeah.
way that that works.
That is the way.
They don't have to, but
Right.
here's the thing is like if you don't want to do that, that's fine. It doesn't cost you anything to not do that,
Mm-hmm.
except for maybe the lost theoretical revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But then don't worry about it that you're sold out. It's like it's that goes back to what you were saying before, like
I
that
was
just be
ready.
yeah, just relax. Like, great, all your classes are sold out. What are you complaining about?
I just relaxed. That was great.
Oh, coffee delivery. Thank you.
Cheers.
Salute.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think part of it is she's holding the discontentment of the clients, the members. Like,
Right.
I can't get in, and I want to, and she wants to grow her membership. Well, we are raising prices. That's
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean that seems like a almost a gimme. That's a layup,
Yeah.
because no one, even if one person complains, it's like we've all done business with someone that's in that scenario, with the business in that scenario, I'm sure, where it's like eh, you know the young entrepreneur approaches something like tries to wheel and deal and get a better price or whatever else, and you realize when you run into the right seasoned entrepreneur that has a real demand flow in their business and they're in control of the supply and demand of their business,
Right.
they are completely unfazed. They're
Totally.
like, oh, we could do it for this price, and they're like, nope. Like it's just
Yeah.
like
This is the price.
I
Yeah.
giving you a deal is not literally giving you a deal, it's
Right.
costing me money. Like
Right.
giving a deal in some cases is to build a business up. This is
Yeah.
like it would actually cost me money because I have so much demand, like
Mm-hmm.
I literally don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean be a butthead about it,
Sure.
but that's a power position to be in.
Yeah.
Okay, well here with the other question. And I went to a meeting yesterday with someone who's coming on to work with us.
Mhm.
And they're in their early phases. They have a very unique thing that they're going to be building, et cetera, et cetera. But long story short, we were talking about where you should spend your time doing work.
Mhm.
And more importantly, differentiating between a symptom and a problem. Because the theory is 50% of the battle is actually identifying and clearly articulating the core problem. If you
Yeah.
actually find the real problem you're supposed to deal with,
Then you're
then
close
you're
to the
like,
solution.
right, you're halfway, because usually a solution almost falls into your lap at that point, or at least you've got two or three ideas like instantaneously.
Yes.
It's unlikely you're like, I have no idea. Like that does happen, but it's less likely.
Yeah.
Anyways, you're 50% of the way to solving it as soon as you can identify it.
Hmm.
So how many classes on the schedule? What do we do with the schedule versus there's like multiple things. I'm having this symptom of like all my classes are full. Well, that's not a negative symptom necessarily, but as a result, I have clients who are unhappy because they can't book into classes. But then we've also said like the obvious solution would be add more classes to slightly dilute the existing ones, but I don't have teachers. So hang on, like this is like a parallel. Why don't I have enough teachers? That's the real question. Or why do my existing teachers, why are they not willing to step up for me? Those are two different problems, but
Mhm.
maybe it's one, both.
Yeah.
Do you run a teacher training?
Mhm.
So
Talked about that. Yeah.
yeah, this is where
Mhm.
probably you identify a right now problem
Yeah.
versus, or additional to, I should say, a like bigger problem. And the bigger problem can sound scary, but actually that's really powerful to identify that because now you know where there's some work to be done. Like that's how you set your goal for the next quarter or year or whatever. So the bigger problem being, how is it possible that you run a business that the core offering is a yoga class service and you have such a shortage of staff that you've lost control of your ability to expand your schedule despite the fact that you have more demand than you can service? So if you write the rules of the game, what are the new rules if you can't lose? The new rules are like, I have to have a funnel for, I also have to have an overage in available teachers.
Yes. Run your own teacher trainings.
Right. Run your own teacher training.
Train your own.
And right. And this, you know what, as a related comment, this is a perfect example of where I think most teacher trainings for the last decade, maybe more, and maybe this is a little bit, you take some shit for saying it, but
Say
like
it. Say it.
most
I think
teacher
you're
trainings out there,
terrible.
I think are run for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Like why people have done them.
Revenue. Thing.
Yeah, it's only just pure money. It's pure money, but I'm not even against like running a teacher training for money. That's a good play.
Mhm.
But it's when like the business doesn't even function, it's not profitable, and the solution is I'll run a teacher training.
Right.
That's a band-aid. That's not, and then it changes like your objective with your teacher training. You start to sacrifice quality. You're looking at like the outcome in a different way,
Mhm.
etc.
Mhm.
The point being, this would be an example of like I need teachers and I need to be able to teach in my method and I need to be able to add classes. Like
Right.
I need to run a teacher training
Right.
and it should be profitable because don't do anything that's not profitable in your business, ideally. But because I need teachers. Like that's a
Right.
real reason. So
Right. Totally. I mean, it's also having me think about old school. I mean, really old school, where guru teacher taps protege on the shoulder and says, "Come with me,"
yep.
and teaches them how to become a teacher. You know.
It's a good point, Nina. I'm not sure how you feel about it. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. I can tell you that my opinion, my more like definitive opinion has washed away, but like people forget teacher trainings are a Western culture thing.
Hmm.
There is now, there are teacher trainings
Yeah.
everywhere in India, all over the place.
Yes.
But
Modeling for
no
the
one,
West.
right. But
Whoa,
like,
that was a great idea. Hey, save
yeah, they're like, oh
money.
shit, this makes a lot of money. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I teacher trainings are a Western culture thing. That was never a thing.
Construct. It was an
Yeah,
oral tradition.
yeah. So the idea, the question about how you feel about it is like there are some studios out there that do that. They're like, cool, like this is my primo student who wants to become a teacher. Like I'm just going to build them into a teacher.
Yeah.
And that has been very controversial in
Mhm.
the yoga world.
Hmm.
yoga business world anyways, people
Hmm.
take some shit on that.
Yeah.
But actually, like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that? You know?
Pretty authentic. And I mean, if you need a teacher, period. Who cares what people think?
I mean, this is a rabbit hole of a conversation because then you get into like certifications and blah blah blah. But like, look, you got I don't I, no one likes
Remember,
to hear this. No one likes to hear this either. But remember, there are no certifications in
that's right.
yoga. It's
It's
all bullshit. Like
that's right. All
it's
made
all
up.
made up. It's all made up. Yoga Alliance is not a thing, you guys.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
look, I'm not talking shit on Yoga Alliance. I don't think that they're a negative organization
Mhm.
necessarily or anything like that. But it's they are just a certification organization that we have accepted as a group. A lot of people have not accepted actually,
True.
but it's just a business that got started by a lady out of San Diego. Like it's
Right.
not
It's a registry. You pay
right.
your money and you have your name in the
Yep.
bank and you have to pay every year. That's all.
Yeah.
That's it.
And in theory, it's creating quality control. It's the registry also creates like an organized approach towards larger battling for things for like not unionization, but like actually protection of yoga plus business and teachers or whatever. Like there's a lot of positives,
Good
but it still
idea
goes,
in theory,
yeah,
but it's not actually happening in practice.
I think it struggles. Yeah. Um, in any case, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't get an official certified whatever either. There's value in there being a stamp of approval on things. Like we have a YC certification to be a YC coach, but I made that up.
Mhm.
Like it just means that we've stamped like you've like proven yourself and
Mhm.
have the experience and have
Mhm.
gone through our training protocols and like have proven that you can do this versus not as a differentiator, but it's still something that had to be invented. So, anyways, I digress. That point aside,
Yeah.
the yeah, the teacher training part with needing the teacher is an interesting one because why not just yeah, mentor someone maybe.
Mhm.
Raise prices, okay,
Yeah.
then get more teachers. That's your longer play. That's a bigger like staffing thing. But the other thing that I'm hearing is, and this is related to raise prices, is adjust the service a little bit. So normally we want to, there's kind of two directions, but normally I would coach more towards like, don't restrict things, don't add a lot of rules in place. Like people don't want to memorize that, whatever.
Mhm.
But when you have more supply and demand control, then you can reimpose some things.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
booking windows, cancellation fees, like that's the easy stuff to see right away.
Yes.
But now also when we're raising prices, like, okay, what if you put in a more premium membership?
Mhm.
So the play would be if right now you have, let's use easy numbers, 100 people on an unlimited membership, and they're paying $100 a month.
Mhm.
Okay. And you want to raise your prices, but you want to like really raise them because of your capacity. To try to jump from 100 to 150, like that's a 50% price increase. People will do it, but a lot of people are going to squawk about it. And that might just be too bad and you got to do it. But the other play would be to change the rules of the game again, where you say, cool, you're $100 a month and you can stay at $100 a month, but now that caps out at 3 classes a week.
Mhm.
Because if the same 100 people can only take 3 classes a week, you've effectively doubled your schedule, 7 days in a week.
Right.
So where I used to be able to practice 7 times in a week, I mean, obviously I could do doubles or whatever. It's like now I can only practice 3. But for the majority of those people, I would bet 80, 90% of them, that's enough.
Uh-huh.
Like they're not actually practicing a lot more than that anyways.
Right.
It's the 20% at the top that are doing the 5, 6 days a week
Yeah.
that honestly, like, we love those people. Those are your brand evangelists. It's not about charging them, but they are using the product
I'm using
at a
it.
significantly higher rate. So it is fair that they would pay more
Right.
comparatively.
Right.
So you, instead of increasing prices you leave a price and you add in a membership above at 130,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can be unlimited, or you go all the way to 150. You're unlimited, but it's 150 a month.
Yeah.
And if you really want to sweeten the deal, that membership is premium, VIP, whatever, because it's the only one that can pre-book 2 months in advance, or it's the only one that has no cancellation on classes, or
Right.
so like people can set up a standing reservation and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
So you're not just paying for the unlimited, you're also paying
Yeah.
for
You're adding
access.
value. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. She does offer a 10 class, an auto recurring 10 class card. They have 10
Yep.
classes to use in a month. Um,
It's an auto recurring 10 per month,
mhm.
but it re-ups when they run out as well. It's double trigger.
No, they just have
No,
10
it's
classes
just 10.
a month. Yeah.
Right.
So that's a similar idea. But it's
Right.
too priced very low. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So maybe it's the price dynamic. Like
right.
most pricing adjustments in studios, the vast majority of the time, like 98% of the time, we want to know what's going on in your market price
Yeah,
wise, and like know what the bubble of
right,
existence is.
right,
But then after that initial phase, like we're not looking at anyone else's prices.
right.
It's a waste of time to do that.
Yeah,
It's really your prices versus themselves. So even when you go to increase prices, sometimes it's just across the board, everything goes up 3%, 5%, whatever. Fine, that's cool. But sometimes that's also the opportunity to like not to increase prices, but to restructure pricing.
hmm,
Because now you're solving for a different thing. And like the reason you would do this isn't just because you feel like it, it's because this is a solution to an actual problem.
that's right.
Overbooked classes, people complaining,
Mhm,
not like trying to increase the average dollars per class. That's a metric that you can work on. So
mhm. That's good. That's good stuff.
what else?
What else? Well, who are you talking to?
Mm. Yeah, I think most of the conversation that's been very fascinating of late for me across a few different businesses has been there's like I guess I just haven't experienced it as much as I have the last month for whatever reason, where there's, I don't even know the Gen Z, Gen whatever, like that conversation. Like
Yeah,
that's a big conversation. And why I'm doing this is because like there's legitimately this gap between ownership and management and like who's working the front desk or some of the new teachers.
right.
And the gap is like
Hmm.
the value system is different,
Hmm.
where they focus effort is different, literally how they speak. Like that's like the joking stuff on TikTok and Reels or whatever, but like literally how they speak about things is quite different.
Hey, Les.
So yeah,
I know.
right. And that's like right.
I keep them
Or
close. I listen and learn. I love them. I
dude,
love them.
I've been trying, but I just got schooled hard. Like I have no idea what's going on
I mean,
versus
people talk so much shit, but they are smart. They are
smart.
sometimes smart ass, but they're creative. They're thinking outside of the box. Gender doesn't exist for these young
Yeah.
folks. It's like, wow,
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
creative.
So that I'm glad you're saying that. So what I was going to say is an owner had to ask me, they're like, is it like, they asked in private, they were very polite about it, but they're like, my job when I'm in person with someone is like, you got to be able to ask the like questions that you can't ask someone. We got to be able to talk about the real shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, is it just like this generation? Is it just like, this is just not a good working force to hire? Like they're finding themselves really frustrated. I
Mm,
said, hell no. Like these are the best employees you're going to have, but you have to figure out how to manage them in a new way.
yeah.
Like the ways of old are done. And
Uh,
really, they're done for every age. This is not an age thing. I would
right.
never take a job and work how I did when I was 20 anymore. It's horseshit. But
Yeah.
just weird, kill yourself for 6 months and do all this stuff. And then you're like, all right, you're in 10 cent an hour raise. You're like, what?
Right. Yeah.
Spend
Yeah.
more on that wearing my shoes out walking here.
Right.
Anyways, but I think some of the best employees, because of what you're saying, like very enthusiastic in certain ways, hyper intelligent, really understand like larger social culture would be one of the describers, I would say. Like there's like a general bigger understanding that I don't think has been there in the same way as it
Right.
has been in the past.
Right.
And in my opinion and experience so far,
Mhm.
most are really looking for leadership. They're
Mhm.
really looking for someone to help, like to mentor them. So like help them become themselves
Right.
through the context of wherever what they're doing, which is
Yeah.
the business.
Right.
So
Mm.
that's really where the buy-in comes from. But
Wow.
the extension of that is, and this is where the leadership comes in. The extension of that is how many times I've had to enter the conversation. And this is not new, but it's been like amplified recently.
Yeah.
Enter the
Right.
conversation around what's the business versus what's your personal opinion,
Mhm.
and how those are not the same thing, and what you're using a business for, especially as an employee. Now, this sounds crazy to say, but like literally someone looked us in the face and said, yes, I'm an employee of this business, but the business should be a social platform to have this conversation on this tumultuous, very highly opinionated issue or whatever else,
Yeah.
because it says in our core values that we're inclusive. And I was like, whoa, like, and
Wow.
this happened because there was sort of a blow up incident that had happened in the studio.
Mhm.
So
Internally with staff or clients or
staff between staff as a result of between staff and clients, a couple clients, a couple staff, and then
yeah.
resulted in someone quitting, even being like, there's no freedom of speech inside this business and like this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And and cool, like,
Yeah.
you have your own core values and therefore set your own boundaries and you have to enact them as a person.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. And
Right.
that's the line where it's like, if those things, the business and your core values are at odds, then maybe it isn't a fit. It's no hard feelings. It doesn't mean anyone's bad or the business is bad. It's just not a fit. That can be okay.
Yeah.
But what was interesting was this imposed expectation
Uh-huh.
on the business.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about a group of people that are don't want to sell stuff and are like struggling to keep profitability going on, but then like this is where all this energy and focus is. So that's the
Mm.
part that I found, this is a little bit rambly now, but like that's the
Yeah.
part I've been finding fascinating is
Yeah.
this like thought. I can't think of, I'd love
Yeah.
to hear it. I know that you have like direct experience
Yeah.
and knowledge in this arena, but
Yeah.
like I can't think of a business I've ever existed in where
Yeah.
I thought it was my job to push the business, to make the business take a stance
Mm-hmm.
and like large action and prioritize finance and focus towards
Yeah.
an issue that was not directly related to the core offering of the business.
Right. Woo! This is some, this gets into some really interesting territory
Yeah,
about like the personal and the professional and what is
yeah,
yoga ethics. And as to quote my friend Josh, if yoga is life, then business is yoga. Um,
yep,
so, and yoga is wholeness and connection, not separation. Um, though maybe inclusive of maybe there is separation. Maybe that's a paradox. Maybe there is, if it's including everything, that it also include separation. Um, so, but
yeah.
to your point, and it's also regional, some of this stuff.
Oh, hyper regional, I would say.
It's
What I'm talking, there are
hyper,
owners, some of you owners are listening to this right now, and you're like, I know exactly what you're fucking talking about. I'm
yeah,
dealing with it right now. And others are going, what? You don't even know what I'm talking about because I'm
right,
being vague on purpose
right.
to not,
And in Florida
you know,
where I am, no, we don't know what you're talking about. I
not
know
a conversation.
because I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So I know very much what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
there is a studio in the Pacific Northwest that actually kicked out a member for her because she was, I mean, can I just be blunt?
Yeah.
Okay. She was not cool with trans people using the bathroom, the women's bathroom.
Right.
And she was very vocal about that. And that made other members uncomfortable, that she was uncomfortable. And
Yep.
so the studio took a stance on that and kicked her out.
Yep.
And you know, I'm just glad I didn't have to make that decision.
Right. And I mean,
That doesn't
I,
exist.
yeah, in some places this isn't even a conversation at all.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I mean, I would agree with that move
Mm-hmm.
personally. Like if I was running my business, I would maybe make that same exact stance
Mm.
personally.
Right. Like
That
it's
being
not a fit.
said,
Like it's not a fit. We are an
right,
inclusive
like
studio, and so
we're an
you
inclusive space. You're welcome here, but not
right,
if you're going to cause unnecessary drama and uncomfort
right,
for other people, like just for any human for any reason. That's not how we roll.
right,
So it's like you're breaking our code of conduct in that case.
right, right.
It's not even, and I think that's the key in my mind is like trying to keep it really clean about why and where something's coming
Yeah.
from,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's hard to make two like, well, right now with all the war zone action taking place, this like over well everywhere in the world, honestly. But we're talking about like Israel, Palestine, like this conflict, that's a hyper tumultuous one.
Yeah.
And that's real complex. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like it's easy to have a core value or have a code of conduct in a business that says, look, inclusivity, everyone's welcome, you're welcome to your opinions. What you're not welcome to do is make other people feel like shit in my space.
Mhm.
Like, so when it comes to the trans bathroom use or something like this, that's a really great example of where like it's probably a little easier to find where the line is,
Right.
but some issues are way more complex. And this to me is one of them where whatever, I digress.
Yeah.
That is a good example to me where I'm like, how do you draw a line where you operate your business from within around this? And look, you can do it however you want. I'm not saying there's any rules for this, but then it comes back to the ultimate point here is it all comes back to like, what is the purpose of your business? Like,
Mhm.
if you're a yoga studio and you're teaching people yoga and how to be a good human being via yoga and to like, even if it's just as simple as like get healthy in your mind and body to start,
Yeah.
that's why people are coming to you.
Right.
Shouldn't the conversation just be there?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
or is it like, isn't that enough sort of
Right.
thing? Like
Right.
there's a line somewhere where there's larger issues socially where you've got to take major stances, but like you'll never not have an issue to take up the fight
Right.
for.
Right.
Maybe the issue should be fight for your business because it's already doing something good.
Mm. Hmm. And let folks connect dots where
Yeah.
the dots to connect.
Yeah. Don't suppress anything, but
Right.
that's not the
Right.
same as actively
Right.
doing something. So it goes back to the employee thing where this differential in generation is a new understanding of the purpose of how the business is a platform
Mhm.
and where this line is of like what its purpose is. So I don't know. I'm not saying I have an answer to this station.
Wow.
And heated,
Mm-hmm.
not negative fighting, but like these conversations get really heated really
Yeah.
fast. Like people's emotions cloud this conversation.
Yep.
And that also becomes very tricky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to, do you know who David Suzuki is?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's out of Vancouver, kind of a big name in sort of the biology world.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, a little less heard of now, written a ton of books, good reads,
Mm-hmm.
but known for his environmentalism, basically. And, especially I think late 90s, early 2000s, early to mid 2000s would have been like his like peak.
Yeah.
Um, but he has a quote that's something to the effect of someone asks him in a conference once, they said, like, I want to protect the whales and we're worried about clean water and there's too much garbage and there's air pollution. And what about nuclear waste and now plastics and microplastics? Like, how do I fight all of these things? Global warming, like how do I do all of these things? And he says, you don't. Like that would be impossible. He said, just pick one. Just pick the thing that you can do something about. He's like, if you're really excited about saving the whales, do that. Because in doing that, you're also going to have an effect on all of these other things. If you can get garbage out of the ocean, it's probably better for whales, you know?
Right.
And so
Right.
I really always took that into business practice where it's the same thing. It's like, you're already a yoga studio, like, in my opinion, fucking saving people's lives.
Yeah. And yeah,
Maybe
opinion
just
has
do that part, you know, like, do
right.
really, like, really,
Right.
really knock it out of the park with that.
Right. That's right. Bring your A game to saving people's lives
Yeah.
and keep it simple, sweetheart.
Do you think that studios should, here's a really specific question. This came up.
Yeah.
Because studios form community,
Hmm.
because they're places of generally inclusivity
Hmm.
and sort of personal and even spiritual growth, you might say, depending on the studio. This is a poor formulation of this question, but I'm just going to say it. Should studios create platform for conversation around controversial world level topics?
My body says no. I just asked my body just right away felt tired.
Right, because
Just tired, like
right,
exhausted,
right,
actually. I mean, you
yeah,
know what? But if that energizes a person and they and that, listen, we live in a world of infinite possibilities and different business models. And maybe that is your business model for a yoga
mm,
studio. Like we
yeah,
are committed to social change and impacting change in this way in this area. And so like actually we talk about it in all of our classes. We offer trainings around it. um
mm,
Hire this way, we fire this way, like this is
yeah,
embedded in PR. Great.
yeah.
Maybe it's a donation, maybe they're not even in this capitalist matrix, maybe that they believe it so much that, I mean, it's all possible.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you're saying because I my gut reaction is similar. That it's like it goes back to what I just said. Like just focus on what you're here to do. In terms of the business, your personal life, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Use all the profit you make that you get as the owner to do whatever you want. We'll build a nonprofit that goes and fights any battle you want.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that that's like the only way to do it, but I think if I'm paraphrasing what you've just said, Nina, it's like then it has to be out of the gate from a clear standpoint, like how you do your business.
Right.
Like lean all the fucking way into it. I would also agree with that.
Hmm.
If you're gonna pick up the torch on these things, then like be that place.
Hmm.
And just know that in doing that, you will attract those people, which is great.
Yeah.
And you will detract people who are not into that. And you
Totally.
have to just accept that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Clarity, I think,
yeah,
is
yeah.
essential.
There are a few studios out there that are, I would say, very successful in their markets because of what you're talking about. They embody a specific,
Hmm.
let's call it angle of approach, philosophy of approach. But it's threaded through every single thing that they do. There is no part of the business that this isn't impacted by. Um, and so they thrive because they become a magnet for people who align with that.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, which could be, the same could be said is true whether you are explicit or not, that you're always, you know, um, drawing in the
Yeah.
people who are attracted to your offering.
100%. Well, here's the easiest example from, I think, it sounds funny to say this, but this might have been like the first example of what we're talking about. Some time ago, the first studio I ever heard of was in maybe 2011. I can think of a studio. There was a Christian studio
Hmm.
specifically. It was
Hmm.
Christian yoga. That's what it
Uh-huh.
was.
Uh-huh.
And that was just it. It's like
Yeah.
they 100% leaned all the way in to
Right.
embodying, like in every class we're talking about Jesus. In every single class we're doing a prayer. There's no meditative, so like it was church plus he did stretching postures,
Clear.
And so people who didn't want that,
Didn't
because
go.
it was controversial at the time. You know, people who didn't want that were pissed. Like they were like, you can't, you know, yoga, whatever. And we're like, they can do whatever they want.
You do whatever
Yoga's
you want.
everything.
Of course you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those
But
who aren't interested aren't going to go.
yeah, I remember talking to this
Oh,
owner of this place, and what was fascinating was at the time, so I don't think it would be as pushed back on as it was at the time. They were early, they were early adopter to this sort of
yeah.
thing,
2011.
but they got pushed back from the Christian community for adding the yoga part in, and they
Right.
got pushed back from the yoga community for adding the Christian part in. So like they were getting it from both sides.
Listen, you know that saying, if you're not pissing someone off, you're not doing it right.
Well, isn't
You
that the
know,
truth? Yeah.
like,
The what do we say? The first rule of marketing, like, well, I don't know if the first rule. I always say the first rule: be different early and often.
right.
But then, how do you know if you're being different? Like, someone's gonna be pissed off at you.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
you're gonna create some controversy.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just heard a good one in the realm of, you're doing it right when you feel imposter syndrome. Now doing it
Oh, nice.
like you're leaning into your edge. Like that's a great way to identify, like, oh, I'm leaning into my edge. I feel like an asshole. I feel like it's great.
Nina, what is imposter syndrome? Like, give
Well,
me your brief
yeah,
description of it.
that's like, I don't deserve, like, when are they going to find out I'm actually I'm a fake, and I don't deserve to be
Right.
in this authoritative position. I don't actually know what I'm talking about.
Imposter syndrome, a persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or
Mm,
has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills.
mm, mm-hmm,
They're at risk of anxiety. Like when people suffering from imposter syndrome often are at high risk of anxiety. Interesting.
mm-hmm.
4 P's of imposter syndrome are perfectionism, paralysis, people pleasing, and procrastination. Ooh,
Terrible keys. Those are also
wow.
enemies of learning.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, the need to be perfect is
Yeah.
like, you have to, when we're new at something, we have to be not knowing how to do the thing while we're learning how to do the thing.
Yeah.
And you just, so a friend of learning is being not good at it.
It's literally the only way to learn it is to have to
Just
be
to
not
go.
good at it first. Yeah.
But yo, I
Fat
gotta jump onto a call with a client.
got your call. All right. We're
Okay.
wrapping it up for today. We check the comments afterwards. Leave a comment down below. Have you this really simple one, because I know a lot of people have talked about this. Like, have you gone through as an owner imposter syndrome? Is this something that you've personally experienced? And if so, and assuming you've like pulled yourself out of it or found something that's helped, what helps? Is there what advice would you give to someone who's a newer owner than you that's like, dude, imposter syndrome, I don't feel like I even own this studio, sort of thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? I'd be curious
Yeah.
to hear. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Have a great weekend.
Fun.
Thanks, Coach
Yeah.
Anita.